All right. So this is a lecture I usually deliver to my students in an S42B, Writing in the Social Sciences, which is a course that's themed on monuments and monumentality. This is a peculiar lecture because generally I ask my students to choose a monument that's local to them, and then I ask them, or I teach them how to write a well-researched 12 to 15 page paper in which they analyze, contextualize that monument and forward some sort of argument. And this lecture is meant to sort of exemplify, well, how I do that sort of work in my own writing and in my own research. All right, so let's get started here. The question I want to ask today is, what does it mean to make monuments that last forever? What does it mean to make immortal monuments? What does it mean to make any sort of art that is essentially eternal? And by forever, I mean forever in the most capacious sense of the word. One thing we'll see is that the word forever is a word that rarely means forever. Forever always has delimitations. To ask these questions, I would like to turn our attention to a peculiar monument that you see behind me. That's the Golden Record. So during the Cold War, the pervading worldview that shaped culture was the threat of self-inflicted nuclear annihilation, mutually assured destruction. At this critical moment in history, the future, or really the lack of future, was horrifying. And when the future puts pressure on the present, as it surely does in our contemporary moment, and as it surely did during the Cold War, artists produce strange monuments. In this case, NASA felt compelled to strap a golden record, a literal LP made of gold, to the Voyager spacecraft. These two spacecraft were launched in the summer of 1979. They would be the first man-made objects to leave the solar system. On the record, images of Earth, greetings in hundreds of languages, and music. They put Bach on there. They put Chuck Berry on there. Javanese gamelan, Navajo night chants, humpback whale songs, Blind Willie Johnson's Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground. The longest piece of non-Western music included on the record, incidentally, was a Chinese piece called Flowing Streams, which you can hear, hopefully, in the background right now. But I'm going to pause it. The record was meant as a gift for aliens that might, in some distant future, retrieve this strange object when the Voyagers left the solar system. Since the Voyager probes are the first human-made objects to leave the solar system, they raise a lot of questions. Because there's very little to damage the Voyagers in space, because space is astoundingly empty, because it is free from the erosive forces of wind, of water, and the most erosive force of all, human beings. This record and these probes promise to be the most lasting monument of human beings ever yet made. Some estimate that the Golden Record will be recognizable for billions of years. By temporal comparison, the pyramids of Giza look like melting mounds of butter in a hot desert. Even if human beings were to obliterate all vestiges of life, the Golden Record will still preserve some slice, or literally some record, of the memory of us into cosmic perpetuity. How are we supposed to understand this strange, far-flung object, out of space, out of time? Considering the Golden Record as a monument representing humankind, and I mean all humankind, allows a space for meditation on cosmic temporalities. Again, what does it mean to make works of art that are nearly immortal? How does the record compel its audience to remember the future, Who is that audience? And who or what populates that future? Who might retrieve this record at such timescales? At what timescale does it become kind of an absurd task to consider the future of human beings? Just how much future is there anyway? In its inaccessibility, in its irretrievability, in its temporal expansiveness, the golden record becomes a remarkable thought experiment, a thought experiment made literal by the material fact of its existence. It demands that one think of incomprehensible distances, of unfathomable amounts of time. It impels its audience to think of a future, not only in a human sense, but also in a galactic sense. What does it mean to be part of a galactic future? It is an object that elevates ideas of thinking universally, quite literally to the universe itself. This 12-inch disc, this golden record, is perhaps, as far as I can determine, the most monumental of monuments ever yet made. As such, it's been called many things. It's been called a time capsule. It's been called a cenotaph. It's been called a sarcophagus, a gift, cocoon, a mixtape to the gods, a Rosetta Stone, a love letter to the universe, a long play record, which of course, that is what it is. All these names are accurate. But in this particular lecture, I want to forward another metaphor, another analog for what we might call this record. I would argue that the golden record is a collective memento mori, a reminder of our humanity, a reminder that humanity will eventually die. That's kind of a sad thought. But it's also a golden graven image object, an object that we might compare to other golden objects, such as the golden bough from Virgil's Aeneid, or the golden fleece. By this, I mean, as surely as Jason and the Argonauts set out to retrieve the golden fleece, and as surely as Aeneas had to retrieve the golden bough in order to descend into hell and see the future of Rome, and as surely as King Arthur had to retrieve the sword Excalibur from the stone, this golden record exists on mythical, epic dimensions. Its retrieval seems to justify the retriever in much the same way that pulling the sword out of the stone proves that King Arthur is the one true king. The strange and noble aspiration of humankind to throw some selection of its thoughts, its dreams, its discoveries, memories, and music into space is accompanied by the harrowing epiphany that just about anything NASA launches into space will outlast humanity itself. That rocket detritus, that space trash might well be the most lasting vestige, asserting the presence of human existence into the cosmic future. Much of what I can say about the golden record can also be said about much humbler abandoned space stuff. The Mars rovers, the moon buggy, cell phone satellites, well, any satellite really, Alan Shepard's golf balls, even the packets of feces and urine and vomit left on the moon by astronauts during the Apollo missions, and their footprints. Each of these objects have a similar claim on eternity. By one estimate, there are some 100 million miscellaneous man-made objects bigger than a millimeter in orbit around Earth, threatening satellites and space stations with the possibility of their impact. These bits of detritus will continue to assert the presence of humanity into the deep future. They are an archive of space miscellany, the fodder for some future space archaeologist's dissertation. There are, of course, more recent examples of our eternal space trash. When Elon Musk successfully launched his rocket, the Falcon Heavy, into space, he attached to it a Tesla Roadster, driven by a dummy, which he named Starman. Starman and the Tesla Roadster will too likely survive forever in space. They are a testament to the absurd power of hyper-wealthy technocrats to celebrate themselves with legacy projects that double as monumental advertisements to themselves. Starman reflects this superficial hopefulness of such monuments. In this case, the roadster stretches towards Mars to the tune of David Bowie's Space Odyssey, and I highly recommend you pull up a YouTube video and just watch a little bit of how strange it is to see this Tesla roadster floating in the vacuum of space. With Starman, Elon Musk demonstrates that monumentality need not take itself so seriously. Monuments can also be cosmic kitsch, an interplanetary joke. The golden record, however, takes itself much more seriously. I forgot to mention, I'm wearing a shirt with Carl Sagan on it. Hopefully you can see it. It says billions and billions and billions and billions and billions, which was sort of his catchphrase. Carl Sagan was a famous cosmologist in his time. I believe he passed away in 1996. But the golden record, the idea for the golden record, the idea that there should be a message for aliens that might retrieve these Voyager missions once they left the solar system. This was his idea. So this is why I have this particular shirt on today. So the question I want to ask now about the golden record is it a hopeful object? Is it hopeful in its imagination that someone or something, somewhere, somewhen might retrieve this golden gift? Or is it pessimistic, nihilistic even, a kind of cosmic tombstone, an acknowledgement of our galactic loneliness? The tough question you have to ask yourself is, how does it make you feel to know that the most lasting traces of human beings in the cosmos will ultimately be our space trash? On the negative hand, we've already briefly outlined it's very unlikely that anyone will retrieve this monument. Space is big and space is empty. I'll go into more, just a little bit, how big and how empty in a sec. That in all likelihood, therefore, this object will sail silently into space in perpetuity, unacknowledged, unexamined, a reminder of our cosmic loneliness. On the other hand, Carl Sagan, who really believed in this object, also really believed in the possibility of aliens. Carl Sagan was also a great admirer of mythology. He recognized the Joseph Campbellian heroic cycle, this idea that a hero without a quest is no hero at all. He placed with this golden record, and as a god would, a goal for heroes to strive for. Let me break down that goal. As surely as a god in mythology would hide a golden fleece for Jason to retrieve, or a golden bough for Aeneas to retrieve, or a sword for King Arthur to retrieve, Carl Sagan placed this golden object for someone else in some distant future to retrieve. Aliens, maybe. And he hid that golden bough, just as the gods did, in a very difficult place to retrieve it. That's kind of the point. It's so far flung, it would elude any but the worthiest of heroes. It would require an intelligence of tremendous genius, of time, of know-how to coax the golden record down from its remote position. So what would it take for aliens to retrieve the golden record, as Sagan imagined? It would require technical know-how on a scale that we have none. The Voyager probes are traveling at thousands of miles an hour. Forgot exactly how quickly. It's something like 25 times the speed of a bullet that's shot out of your average pistol. So they have to stop a several ton object traveling that fast, remove the golden record, and figure out how to play an LP. This is a big ask for aliens. In other words, it's very, very unlikely. But just for the sake of a thought experiment, because the golden record is surely that. Let us allow ourselves to expand our temporal horizons just for a moment and consider what would it happen? What might happen? So earlier I said space is big. It's really big. So let me ask you this. Let's say 60,000 years go by. The golden record has just been traveling through space. What would be the closest star to the golden record after that time had elapsed? What would be the closest galaxy? No, sorry, what would be the closest solar system? If you think it's any other star than our own, the sun, you would have underestimated how big space is. Even if 60,000 years were to elapse, the golden record would still be closest to us. This leads to a strange deduction. In any hopeful likelihood, the aliens that we and or Carl Sagan anticipate might retrieve this golden record, well, they're us. We are the aliens that we anticipate. The golden record is a gift from us to us. And by that second us, I mean our great times 60,000 years of generations grandchildren. So imagined as an analog to these golden objects that heroes must retrieve to prove their heroicness, the golden record reflects on humanity. To retrieve the golden record would be an unprecedented technological feat. But what else would it mean? It would mean that the apocalypse of nuclear war, of our current global warming climate crisis, of whatever apocalypse you want to imagine, had been delayed long enough that some level of harmonious cooperation among our species had allowed for the development of such a space technology capable of leaving the solar system, finding a distant speck of a satellite, one of these Voyagers, a golden needle in a haystack, grasping it, diverting its trajectory, and returning it home. The golden record thus becomes a symbol of our species, the human species, coming of age and choosing a path of virtue and cooperation rather than self-destruction. The very act of retrieving the golden record, just as the golden bough, proves the merit of the retriever. Now, for the now though, because I don't think we're retrieving the golden record anytime soon, the golden record remains fast in the public imagination. And this is part of its effectiveness as a monument. Musicians have made multiple concept albums based on the golden record, including a hipster reboot called the Space Project, which is from 2014 and worth listening to. A group called SETI X, the Search for Extraterrestrial Life X, created a concept album called Scrambles of Earth. And the album imagines a hypothetical situation in which some aliens retrieved the record, remixed it, and sent it back to Earth, and what that would sound like. A medley of movies have been written about the golden record, including Star Trek films. Most recently, The Farthest is a documentary from 2017 that won an Emmy for Outstanding Science Documentary. And as early as 1978, Sagan considered the possibility of making a commercial version of the record, a little not golden record, but with the golden record stuff on it. So you could put it on your record player and you could listen to the golden record at home. This never happened, at least until recently, when a group decided to start a Kickstarter campaign, fundraising campaign. And they took up the challenge of raising money to create a box set, an LP box set of the golden record. Their goal was to raise about $200,000. They raised $1.4 million because that's how popular this thought experiment is. And then it won a Grammy. Many have posited what would be on the golden record today. And this is a thought experiment that Carl Sagan anticipated. The poet Anthony Michael Morena proposed a number of his own revisions to correct the many omissions on the golden record in a book of poetry he wrote in 2015. His suggestions included Tibetan throat singing, hip hop, a Mongolian long song, the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction. And I would note that there's no Beatles on the golden record. That seems to be a big omission. The rumor is that they wanted to put Here Comes the Sun on the golden record, fitting, but were limited by copyright. Apparently copyright also applies to space and aliens. There is no Russian music on the golden record because, well, Cold War bureaucracy. There's no Fela Kuti, no Norwegian black metal, no Philip Glass. Anyway, it's a good thought experiment. If we're going to present our best face to the cosmos, and we only have a limited amount of space to do so, what would you put on the golden record? For the now, the golden record is just that. It's a creative writing prompt. It's a concept album, a literalized thought experiment that asks its audience to reflect on its place in the universe. It is a monument to the future, a vehicle for carrying our thoughts to the limits of temporal possibility. And it is our best bid at immortality yet. To quote Carl Sagan, 1 billion years. Think on that. Thank you.